In 1894, William Askew founded W.T. Askew & Sons Agents in Gordonsville, Tennessee. He served as one of Smith County's leading insurance agents for 14 years, selling fire insurance for the Home Insurance Company of New York and Continental Casualty of Chicago. In 1908, Askew sold his agency to Sam Pickering, who ran the business solely for 12 years, and over the course of that time established himself as an expert in farm policies. Julian Fisher joined Pickering in 1920. In 1923, Roy Sampson came on board. However, shortly thereafter, Mr. Fisher decided to retire. At that time, Mr. Pickering, desiring to devote his time solely to farm property, transferred all other classes of insurance to Myers, Garden Hire, and Cantor, a competitor in town. In the 30s, Pickering was joined by D. Frank Powell, forming the partnership Pickering and Powell. He was also joined by his son Coleman, who again expanded the business beyond farm property. As Pickering aged, D. Frank began operating as the sole proprietor of D. Frank Powell Insurance, focusing on all classes of insurance, but with the majority of his business in farm property. At the time of his death in 1952, Sam Pickering was one of the oldest insurance agents in the state. In 1962, Mike Meadows joined D. Frank, and in 1965, he became the sole owner of the agency. The first employee for Powell & Meadows Insurance Agency was Mrs. Nina Sutton.
I started to work in 1965 after Mike Meadows had purchased the agency.
Although the agency had always carried the name of its owners, when Mr. Meadows bought out Mr. Powell, he had not yet decided on a name. Nina's first phone call would establish the company's name, which has stuck for the last 54 years.
I had to answer it some way, so the only way I knew was Powell & Meadows, even though Powell had no interest at that time. Mr. Powell did have a rapport with these farm people that he continued to come in and go with Mike to these places to get their pictures up, their coverage, do whatever, meet them and greet them and all that.
In 1967, D. Frank Powell passed away. Mike, a very sales-oriented man, continued to establish Powell & Meadows as one of the leading agencies in the county through his business expertise and knowledge of the community.
During my working relationship with Mike Meadows, I learned real early that Mike had a memory. He remembered people, he remembered phone numbers, he remembered incidents that, as he stated one time, he wanted to know the people he insured.
He could sell, he had the salesman's drive and business sense, I guess.
He was very knowledgeable.
He really
of the
did. Yes, he
insurance.
was.
By this time, Powell & Meadows, originally located at 216 Main Street North, above the old Smith County Bank building, had moved to a new location, a small office space above what is now Mid-10 Office Supply. Growing quickly, a second move in 3 years found the agency at 608 Main Street, what is now Shoulders TV. In 1969, the agency began representing the Cincinnati Insurance Company, and in 1972, Powell & Meadows merged with the Gordon Oldham Insurance Agency. More room also provided Powell & Meadows the opportunity to diversify the commercial lines and personal lines. Diversification allowed the agency to experience rapid expansion, which, again, outgrew its location. On February 8, 1974, the agency moved to 910 North Main Street. In 1981 and 82, Powell & Meadows permanently acquired the Draper Searcy and Thomas Aminet agencies.
When we purchased Draper Searcy, Spoodle's insurance agency, we already were familiar with him and had known him for many years by that time. And there were so many phone calls that you had to call somebody to find out if this, is this policy still in effect? On the other hand, Mr. Tom Aminet, every I was dotted, every T was crossed, every policy was in their file folders, and it was just a breeze.
After 20 years as the sole owner, Mike decided it was time to bring in someone who had the desire to take over the agency. In June 1986, Philip Piper joined the company after working in the industry for 5 years. He came with a dream of owning his own business and a passion to serve the public.
I started Powell & Meadows June 1, 1986, with an agreement with Mr. Meadows that if I worked for 5.5 years and met certain goals, then I would have the opportunity to purchase 25% of the stock in Powell Meadows Insurance Agency Incorporated, with an option to buy more at later dates that were already defined in the contract.
In 1988, Powell and Meadows continued to expand its operations, this time to Lafayette, Tennessee, acquiring 3 agencies.
The agencies that we bought out of Lafayette was the Howard Allen Smith Agency and the Truman Gregory Agency.
Mrs. Pat Gann, who had worked in the insurance industry for several years, came to work in the newly formed Lafayette office in 1988. She remembers not only the hard work required of her, combining multiple agencies, but also how enjoyable her time was with Powell and Meadows.
The memories I have working there was we had a lot of work to do to get everything organized, but we also had days when we were really tired that we would just take a few minutes and relax and laugh and have a lot of fun. I enjoyed working there with all the people. Some of the people came with the different agencies, some of them didn't. And I would have to say that that was the best job that I had.
A leader and salesman with a passion for his industry, Mr. Meadows continued to experience success. In 1990, Powell and Meadows celebrated its 75th year, representing USF&G Insurance Company, and in 1991, Powell and Meadows broadened its customer base further by opening a 3rd branch office in Lebanon, Tennessee, to service the Wilson County area.
I got a phone call one day when we were at the other office, the older office, here on Main Street in Carthage, and Mr. Meadows was on the phone, and he called and he said he wanted me to come to Lebanon immediately. Well, this was 1990, so I jumped in the car, drove down to Lebanon, met him at an Associates Capitol building, which was on West Main in Lebanon. And he asked me if I thought we should buy this building. And I asked him why we were going to buy the building, and he said, we're going to open an insurance office here in Lebanon. I thought he was kind of crazy because, you know, we were really working hard already. And I told him, I said, well, I'm not sure. And he said, well, if you want to buy part of the building, I need to know now because I'm buying it tomorrow. So that's how the Lebanon office started. We had no business, we had no employees, but we went in and bought a building.
Barbara Griffin, who worked in the Lebanon office 14 years, came to the agency from State Farm.
Changing from State Farm to Powell and Meadows was totally different. At State Farm, you just answered the phone, you didn't get into the nitty-gritty of writing any policies, as whereas in Powell and Meadows, you wrote the policies. And Powell and Meadows was more intense, but you knew your customers better. You knew their background, you knew them, and they became your friends and family. And you look at the time and listen. You don't push them out the door. You're able to talk to them and listen to them and know where they're coming from, and you become more involved in the writing of the policies.
In 1992, after 5 years, Philip became Mike's partner.
When he was able to buy in, he bought his portion, and it was like a whole new demeanor. He had begun the process of the dream that he had always dreamed, which was to have his own business.
Powell and Meadows' success did not solely exist in the bottom line. The agency was immersed in family. Like Mr. W.T. Askew and Sam Pickering, whose sons worked beside them, Mike Meadows and Philip Piper were privileged to work alongside family. One unique relationship being with their fathers, who were there to support them, push them, and provide for the agency's needs as it grew.
I remember a long time ago when Mike Meadows' father, B. Clark Meadows, he would like to go out with me on claims. He said, I like to see the people, and a lot of times that eased any tension that may have been if it was a contentious type claim.
After my dad retired, they sold the business, and he would come and help me here at Powell and Meadows. He would do everything from inspecting buildings and take pictures for us. He would go get the mail. He loved opening the mail. But more than that, he was just kind of a fixture in the community, representing us very well. And also, he got to know the employees.
Whatever Mike needed, B. Clark was there to do it. And same with Philip. Philip had his dad, Mr. Billy Piper, He would come. Biggest thing was mowing the grass. I think Mr. Piper would rather be on the lawnmower than anywhere else. But he was always there for Philip too, and I think Mike and Philip both have had the support from their dads that they would do anything for their sons to succeed.
In 1998, Philip became the sole owner of Powell and Meadows.
I can remember the night that we actually knew that it was real and was really going to happen. We were sitting talking about it, and both of us were so incredibly nervous because we were like, oh my gosh, what have we done? In the same breath, we would be going, but this is our dream. This is what you want. This is what you've worked so hard for.
Together, Philip and Kathy decided she would take care of the administrative side of the business. So Philip, with Kathy by his side, finally fulfilled his lifelong dream of owning his own business.
First of all, let me just say there's only a few numbers that I remember. One is my Social Security number. The other is my wedding anniversary. And the last thing is Powell and Meadows business line that Philip called me on every day, and usually about every 10 minutes during the day. But it's 615-735-1111.
He's competitive and driven, and competitive in a good way, because I think he gets up every morning, with a fire and a passion to make things better in his agency, for his employees, for his clients, and for his family.
He wants us to be the best we can be for them, and he helps us do that.
As certain agencies reach a certain point in their careers, they seem comfortable, and I feel like Philip will never be comfortable. I feel like he's driven now the way he was when he was 20 years old, and I think that will continue until he's 80 years old.
Phil's personality is bigger than life.
I think one of the reasons that Powell and Meadows has been so successful is because Philip is so committed to building relationships.
In 1999, Philip brought 20-year industry veteran Ray Edwards on board to manage the Lebanon office.
Cincinnati Insurance Company rep, I believe it was Mike Francois at the time, was the field rep for the agency I was working for in Tullahoma. But he also called on Philip. So Philip asked him one day if he knew of anyone that he might be able to call to maybe interview for the job in Lebanon. And Mike Francois was nice enough to say, well, you need to call Ray Edwards.
After 5 years, Ray brought into the agency, becoming Philip's partner and vice president.
Some of the great things I've learned from working with Ray, the time that I've had the privilege of working with him, he has shown me the importance of organization, paying attention to details. He treats his customers with a level of professionalism that is rarely seen in our industry. That warmness and that personality and that feel that he has and that he brings with him every day is something that customers identify with and that they appreciate.
He's a very, very good insurance agent, very technically sound, knows insurance coverages, knows his customers really, really well, does a great job on servicing his clients.
In 2007, Powell and Meadows grew to include Carol Griffin, who had worked with the agency as an underwriter and broker in Arkansas.
I started working with Powell Meadows in the early 1990s. During that time and years following, Powell Meadows was establishing a position as insurance specialist for utility companies. I worked for the agency for many years as both an underwriter and a broker for their book of utility business, and Powell Meadows became the largest customer. Eventually, due to uncertainties with my employer, I approached Philip regarding a possibility of working for Powell Meadows. In August of 2007, I became the 13th employee of Powell Meadows.
In 2008, Philip approached Robin Underwood of Underwood Financial Services, wanting her to come on board and start a life and health division.
Philip first called me. I was at my desk on a work day, and he called and he asked me if he could come sit down with me, and he needed to talk to me. So he came in, and to my surprise, he was interested in starting a life and health division of Powell Meadows. In the past, Powell Meadows they did group benefits, but they did it on a much smaller scale.
In 2009, Philip's son Chip joined the company. For Philip, he was able to experience something rare, working in a business setting with his father, wife, and son.
we were lucky to have the ability to have 3 generations working together, and I do think that that is an unusual situation, but I also think that in our case, with my dad, myself, and Chip working together, it was a real blessing for all 3 of us.
I have had a unique relationship with my grandfather being involved in what we do a lot. He was never licensed, but was in the office literally every day, a couple times a day. We would start in the morning with doing the mail. If there were, things that needed to be delivered, pictures that needed to be taken, he and I would go do those together. And the benefit of getting to see he and my dad and all 3 of us interacting together was one of the best things that I can, I can't even articulate it really. I can't do it justice in talking about it. The impact that it's had on my life is something that can't be measured or summed up.
With the agency's continued focus on family and personal relationships, combined with the expansion of the Life and Health Division through Underwood Financial Services, a top-notch sales team, and remarkable employee base, Powell and Meadows' growth was unprecedented. The agency was quickly outgrowing its Carthage location, and the need for more room was obvious.
He saw the fact that we were so crammed in there that when our customers would come in and they would want to see us and discuss things with us, discuss their problems with their policies and things like this, he has allowed us to spend the time with these people. It's not been that, that it's all business. Yes, we're in a business, but the greatest thing that I see out of it is the fact that we're a family. That we're a family to the community and that we truly, genuinely love each other.
In 2011, the new Carthage office was built, allowing employees to continually invest in their customers. The property on which the new office was built had been the site of a historical home. Therefore, as the home was torn down, pieces were saved and used in the new office building, preserving the past while propelling the agency into the future.
In the back of the house was a very tall black walnut tree. We took the tree down, built the fireplace in the lobby of the building, and built 2 tables that all came from the same tree. Another thing that we did is when the house came down, there were very large rocks that the house was standing on. We took those rocks, we put them to the back of the property, and when we got the building built, we put those in the landscape.
With a new office in Carthage, as well as 2 branch offices servicing customers in Macon and Wilson counties, Powell and Meadows was better able to support its rapid growth.
I think one thing that helps Powell Meadows, and has in the past and will in the future, stand out from not being just, quote, another insurance agency, is the attitude of the employees and the ownership wanting to get great clients and keep that relationship with them. I've worked many years with many agents, but the Powell Meadows group, just keeping in touch with the people and staying a people business.
The friendships that you develop with your customers has been really, really amazing. And that's what makes being in the insurance business so fun.
Powell & Meadows was always a very quiet company. And, I later learned that they were sort of a little quiet giant in town. They were so much larger than they appeared to be. I think that the company was always very conservative. And that was something that I grew to appreciate in Powell & Meadows, is that they did have a very successful business, but Philip was always very conservative in the way that he portrayed that.
It's been a good ride with Powell & Meadows. We've grown every year since I've been here.
January 2015 saw the acquisition of the Jernigan & Cage Insurance Agency in Portland, Tennessee. Jessica Hunter, owner of Jernigan & Cage Insurance, came on board at that time.
In 2014, through a mutual marketing representative, Philip and I met and we discussed a potential agency purchase. There were several similarities between us. We represented some of the same companies, and we both grew up in small towns and have always worked in the industry. We're about the same age with the same values. And the Powell & Meadows agency is first class. It's led by great people who take care of their customers and their employees. I see the strength and caring in Philip's leadership. I wasn't ready to retire and have continued to work and see it on a daily basis. it's knowing that you're treated like family that makes a difference.
In January 2017, Chip bought into the agency, becoming a vice president, fulfilling his lifelong dream of working alongside his father in the family business.
The influences that my dad has had on me, he has taught me do business the right way, with no question, with no ambiguity, treat people right, do the right thing even if it's more expensive than cutting a corner. He has shown me the importance of supporting those who support you, investing in your friends and in your coworkers, because at the end of the day, people aren't going to care how much money or how much premium or how many employees. They're going to care about how we treated the people that worked with us, the people that we served, and doing those things right is something that he has been consistent with that from start to finish.
Chip is much more stable and than I was at his age. He listens very well to the employees. He's concerned about their well-being. I think he does a lot of small things for the employees that go a long way.
He brought a different insight on the business because he's a young man that's grown up in the technology world. So as Chip came on, he brought a lot of diversification to the company because he was able to really reiterate the importance of growing in technology.
And I think that too helps our customer because we're able to be in multi-places. Chip is a lot of times in the Portland office managing that. I'm a lot of times in the Lafayette office seeing clients and doing things like that. So I think the ability to do business anywhere is an advantage for us and for our customers because they don't see that we're just in one location. We're all over Middle Tennessee and the state of Tennessee.
Powell and Meadows' relationships extend beyond the office and its client base into the home lives of its employees and the community.
That's one thing about Powell and Meadows that I love as a working mom is that he wants us to be at our kids' functions. He wants us to be, at our family functions and do things in our community, and I think I appreciate that in an employer.
I think as mothers and as employees of Powell and Meadows, you really appreciate the family that he wants everyone to be a part of at home.
It's just an intentional walk in our corporate life to focus on supporting the people who help support us.
After 125 years, where does Powell and Meadows see itself in the future? Will the agency continue to operate in a family-oriented, relationship-focused manner that has given it its competitive edge since it was established in 1894?
The future, I think, is excellent for Powell and Meadows.
People that have stood by us and let us keep insuring them year in and year out. Hopefully we've earned that trust, and we definitely want to continue that local business attitude.
Focusing on gradual, consistent, steady growth, the principle of doing business in an old-fashioned, respectful way where you're really just running a company with the golden rule as kind of the bedrock principle. And I think if you treat other people right, everything else will kind of fall into place.
How long you were with the agency? Okay, I started out as an account executive doing group benefits for the agency along with Medicare and can we cut that?
And I can tell you from my own personal experience, when you're young, you just got this churning, just go get 'em attitude. As you get older, you're wore a little bit more, and you're more tired.
Somebody else can get them.
So sick of 'em.
I think the question you always ask like a high school senior is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Don't say retired. Just stick
Some beach somewhere.
Can you tell me about Mr. Powell again?
Well, Mr. Powell was a grouchy old man. D. Frank Powell was a grouchy old man as far as I was concerned. But, he was old and it was time to go. So.
My name is Tanya Davis. I am
You're fine. You can just cut.
Okay, we're going to start it. Oh my gosh, I was trying to flow from her, but should I not do that? Okay. All right.
And the peril it's insured against is fire. So if that poor little mule caught fire, he'd be covered.
Dead mule.
We don't want to be a cooker cutter. Let's try it again. We don't want to be a cookie. Try it again. We don't want to be a cookie cutter organization where everybody is the same.